First, thank you. Second, I want to talk about one thing here of, often with this, it's not just like, so Chad Coleman's a great actor. And like, I would never want him to have created that character with AI because we created it with Chad. And he did an absolutely fantastic job with it. But it's also how you create these characters, think about them, and pull on them. So there's, the first time I met Chad, it was in New York City. He was in a play, Joe Turner Come and Gone. I'll get to that in a sec. But we met, and I'm like, oh, I kind of written you more kind of Georgia Southern, because I know if you're from Europe, you're thinking like Southern. It's not. There's like Georgian Southern's different than Texas Southern, which is Florida's more Southern, but it's not Southern. It's white trash. Whatever, right? Like there's a whole bunch of different dialects that exist around here. When I met him, I'm like, oh, you're Northern Virginia. You're from Northern Virginia. He's like, yeah, how'd you know? Like, because I had just read this book. American Dialects, a manual for actors, directors, and writers. Now, this is not a Bible. This is a guide. Because what I like to do is, after meeting with Chad, I'm like, oh, the Northern Virginia totally works. Because I can use this. I can use this and look for phrases and words. And there's a bunch of websites you can go to and you could look for people with those dialects. And they've recorded them. And they've just recorded conversations. And they're not exciting conversations. A lot of times there's family stories and stuff. But you can just listen to them. And the cool thing there is you're not going to like copy them. They're not going to be perfect, right? Their video game characters are going to yell out stuff, and everybody yells out, like, how do you pronounce New Orleans? Depends. And it even depends if you live in a place, if you're calling it Nolans, and it sounds fake because you're trying to say it that way versus New Orleans or New Orleans or whatever, right? Like everybody says it differently, even in their locations. And so you can have that variation. But the cool thing is you watch all those videos, and you occasionally just get a phrase, you get a word that you can turn, you could add, and then it just feels right? And it just connects right. And so that's what we try to bring to the writing. So we do a lot of work here, I think people don't realize, to try to create these characters and think about these characters, because that really helps. And that was one of the problems with Dana Cruz's, was being in space, and I was kind of inventing how language would change, because in reality, people would lose the more particular accents over time because you would be spread out, and like there's some good books on that too. But okay. But so for this, that's what we did. And so it was a lot of fun working with Chad and creating the character, because he had this roots already to pull from. And so when we're pulling from and had him do the original trailer with the religious and his mom and all of that, like that comes also from who he is. Oh, I forgot to say, so Joe Turner Come and Gone, it was a play he was on Broadway in New York City. He won a bunch of awards for it. It was really good. And when we got done recording him, he's like, hey, I got you 2 tickets for the show tonight. I'm like, oh, cool. We're sure what we're going to do because we're not flying back to tomorrow. Awesome. And so then we went to go see it. It was really good. And then we went just backstage to go congratulate him and say thanks. And he's just like, where are we going, guys? Let's go get beer. And ends up he'd just gotten in the beer. So he went to a beer bar, but a beer bar in the theater district after the theaters had closed. So there's like David Duchovny there, Matthew Broderick, like a bunch of names you've seen and heard. But then he introduced me to Ted Lang, who was the bartender for the TV show Love Boat. And for an old man, that was meeting like, ooh, wow. Like, and I don't ever harass or go up to people because we're peers. We're all creators. But that was really cool to meet him and find out like how much he'd given and helped the community of people in that area. And it's just always fun to see a bunch of actors like after they're done with their performances for the day. Because I think everybody had a play that day or a performance that day, and just kind of kitten back. As someone who's got a degree in theater, like I'd been there before and gotten to see some cool stuff before. But so yeah, Chad was always just great and giving and super willing to throw down and do anything. And you see that again and again with people that you want to work with and that really deliver really great performances. And that's always willing to give themselves to you equally. They never look down and like, oh, this is just video games or anything like that. And, I super appreciate that.